could speak. You were handed a name, a language, a story. This is who you are, they said. This is how to be. And like any good actor handed a script, you memorized the lines. You played the role, quiet child, class clown, the achiever, the anxious one. Whatever earned you safety, or love, or attention, you performed. And after a while, you forgot it was a performance. This is what I call the borrowed self, not a deception, not a lie, but a costume worn so long it began to feel like skin. You believe quite sincerely that your preferences are yours, that your values are your own. But look closely. Where did they come from? Did you choose your favorite food, or was it served to you as a child, comfort wrapped in familiarity? Did you choose your language, or was it poured into your ears before you understood what a word was? Did you choose your sense of humor, your fears, your gestures, or were they stitched together from the people around you like a patchwork quilt? The you that you defend, your voice, your choices, your image in the mirror, may simply be the echo of everything you've seen, heard, and absorbed. And here's the paradox: that echo feels so real, it walks and talks and dreams and weeps. But try to find the self beneath the echoes, and it begins to dissolve. You say, well, I'm just being myself. But which self? The one with your friends, the one at work, the one alone at night. These are not lies, they're masks, reflexive, adaptive, but always changing. And if the mask is always changing, where is the face? The deeper you look, the more it slips away. Psychology calls it contextual, neuroscience finds no core. Philosophy runs itself in circles trying to pin it down, but the result is the same. There is no permanent self behind the curtain, only process, only pattern. Even your body, the thing you most instinctively say is you, is a river, not a statue. Every cell replaced, every sensation filtered. You didn't choose its shape or its wiring, it agings without your permission. And still you say, this is me. But who is saying that? The voice in your head is a collection of influences, and the body is in constant flux, and your story keeps rewriting itself with each memory. Who exactly are you trying to become? Perhaps no one. Perhaps the self is not a fixed entity, but a useful illusion of character that makes the play easier to follow, a name tag floating over empty space. And here's the liberation: if the self is borrowed, so is the pressure, so is the shame, so is the need to constantly uphold a version of yourself for others to see. If there's no fixed self, then never yours. You can let the story breathe. And in that breathing, beneath the masks, behind the mirrors, something quieter begins to stir. Not a better self, not a truer version, but awareness itself, the space in which the performance rises and falls. Not the actor, not the role, the stage. So the next time you catch yourself trying to figure out who you are or how you're doing or whether you're enough, pause. Not to answer, just to see what's there when the performance stops. And what you find is not an identity, but a silence that never needed one.
You open your eyes and the world appears. Walls, light, objects, the quiet hum of expectation. You remember your name, you reach for your phone. You assume, without hesitation, that the world was waiting for you. But where was it, exactly, before you looked? That's not a riddle. It's a crack in the floorboards of what you take for granted. Because you see, the world you experience is not something you encounter directly. You don't see light itself. You don't hear pure vibration. What you experience is your brain's best guess. A sensory hallucination so convincing that you mistake it for reality. Your eyes are not cameras. Your ears are not microphones. They don't transmit objective truth. They send raw data, wavelengths, frequencies, tiny pulses of energy. It's your brain backstage that renders all this into a picture. The picture is convincing. Chairs look solid. Trees remain in place, even when you're not looking. But this solidity, this consistency, is not proof of external reality. It's proof of a well-crafted model. You think you're seeing the world, but you're seeing a rendering, a dream drawn in pixels of perception. And this is where things get interesting. Physics, quantum physics in particular, suggests that what we call reality doesn't truly settle until it's observed. That particles exist in clouds of probability until a measurement is made, and only then do they appear somewhere specific. Which is to say, reality behaves differently when you're not looking. You assume the room behind you is still there. You assume your kitchen isn't vanishing when the door is shut. But you've never confirmed that. Only trusted it. like a child believing the moon follows them home. And here's the kicker. You don't experience the world itself. You experience your experience of the world. All of it happens inside awareness, not outside, not out there. You're not looking through a window, you're sitting in a theater. The film plays, the characters arrive. The weather changes. And we forget we're the ones watching. Even your body is part of the movie. The sensation of hands, feet, breath. It's all rendered in consciousness. So then what is the world? Is it something that exists independently of your observation? Or is it born in the moment you see it? The old mystics used to say there is no world apart from the mind that sees it. And science, after a few thousand years, has begun to tiptoe back toward that same cliff. You don't live in the universe, you live with it. The line between observer and observed may not be a line at all. So what does that mean for your daily life? It means the chair is not just a chair. The sound is not just a sound. Everything you perceive is an interaction, a dance between you and what? The ineffable, the ungraspable. And here lies the paradox of the phantom world. The thing you've always assumed to be most real. That which you can touch, see, measure, may be nothing more than a projection on the screen of awareness. Not fake, not meaningless, but not separate. So as you lie here, eyes closed, perhaps with the weight of the day still lingering, consider this. The world you think you live in may be less like a machine and more like a mirage, not something to conquer or explain, but something to notice with reverence. Because when you stop trying to make it real, it becomes something far more astonishing. A live, mysterious instant. And you, dear dreamer, are not standing apart from it. You are it.
Each morning something vanishes. Before the alarm, before the first thought, before even the twitch of a finger, an entire world dissolves. just living in. You had a dream of full existence. You knew people. You felt things. Sometimes joy, sometimes terror, sometimes something so strange it defies language altogether. And then, gone. Perhaps a trace remains, a blurred face, the feel of water, the sense of flying, but the rest vanished. As if it never was. And yet, while it lasted, that dream was everything. Just like this moment is everything now. The paradox is that you don't remember the moment the dream ended. You remember the waking, but not the dissolution. It's as if the curtain fell before you could notice the stage being dismantled. And here comes the question, gentle but unsettling. If your dream self can disappear so completely, what makes your waking self any more permanent? The version of you sitting here now, this bundle of thoughts, memories and desires feels solid, but only because you're inside it. The dream self never questioned the dream, and the waking self rarely questions waking. But perhaps they're both made of the same stuff. You've lived thousands of dream hours, entire lifetimes really. And yet almost all of them have vanished. As if someone scribbled a novel in the sand and the tide swept it away before dawn. And if a dream can feel real while you're in it, who's to say this isn't just a deeper dream? You might think, but I have memories, I have a history. Do you? Or do you have a curated collection of fragments, some of which never happened the way you remember? The mind, you see, does not keep perfect records. It tells stories, it fills gaps, it forgets more than it recalls. Your life is not a film on a reel. It's flashes of remembered feelings stitched into something we agree to call a timeline. So what happens to the moments that weren't remembered? The years that passed unnoticed, where did they go? They vanished, like dreams, which leads us to the haunting possibility. If so much of waking life is forgotten, how different is it from the dream you lost this morning? Struggle to make life meaningful, to build monuments of memory, to capture a sense of permanence, but permanence is not part of the design. Even the most profound experiences, the births, the deaths, the heartbreaks fade, not because they didn't matter, but because they were never meant to be held. The harder you try to grasp reality, the more it slipped like water through your fingers. And yet, something remains. Not the story, not the memory, but the awareness that sees both come and go. The dreamer isn't the self inside the dream. It's the field in which dreaming happens. And here's the strange grace of it. If waking life is a kind of dream, then it's not meaningless, it's miraculous, for even the fleeting can be sacred. So tonight, as the last thoughts begin to drift and the body softens into rest, ask quietly, not with fear, but with wonder. What if I'm already dreaming? And if you are, then let it be the most beautiful dream you've ever had. And if not, then perhaps you've just begun to wake up.
You lie still in the dark. The body is there. You can feel its weight sinking into the mattress, breath rising and falling like the tide. But you're not looking for the body, nor the breath, and certainly not the thoughts. They come and go, drifting like clouds through an open sky. Yet something remains, a witnessing, a knowing, a peculiar awareness that doesn't quite seem to be anywhere, and yet is undeniably present. And here comes the puzzle. Who or what is aware of all this? You're not seeing with eyes, not hearing with ears. There are thoughts, yes, but they're more like echoes in a canyon, appearing, disappearing without anyone clearly speaking. So who's listening? Who's watching? The harder you look for this observer, the more it slips through your fingers. It's like trying to touch the tip of your own finger with itself. A sort of vanishing point in consciousness. The curious thing is that everything you know, everything you've ever known, has unfolded in the space of this awareness. Every sound, every face, every fact and feeling, but where is the center of this awareness? Can you find it? You might point inward, say, well, it's me, of course. But who is this me? The body that changes the thoughts. They contradict themselves every 10 minutes, the memories, conveniently edited, frequently revised. And when you try to observe the one who observes, well, what do you find? Just more thoughts, more sensations, more scenery, never the seer. Some traditions say that's the proof. The self is beyond perception, the timeless witness behind the play. Others say quite the opposite, that the witness is a neurological fiction, a narrative trick the brain plays on itself to keep the lights on. And when you peer into the brain with modern instruments, what do you find? No command center, no captain at the wheel, just networks, distributed systems, activity here, language there, memory looping quietly in the background. All of it whirring along without anyone clearly in charge. So if there's no you in the cockpit who's steering the ship, that you see is the heart of the matter, you experience life as if someone is behind the eyes. You say, I'm thinking, I'm feeling. But when you go looking for that eye, it's never there. Just more experiences arising and fading like mist in sunlight. And so we arrive at a peculiar place, an awareness that cannot find itself, but knows it is, not an object, not a person, not even a soul in the conventional sense, just the fact of being empty of form, but full of experience. And what a strange, beautiful thing that is. You are not the thoughts, you are not even the thinker, you are the field in which thought appears and disappears, not the self, but the space. And in seeing this, not as a theory, but as a living truth, everything begins to shift. There is no need to cling to the idea of a self, no need to defend a story, no one left to impress, no mask left to wear. Just this mystery, this presence, not a person, not a name, just awareness, watching the show and knowing quietly that it was never real in the way it seemed.
You open your eyes and there it is. The world familiar as an old coat.
But here's the strange thing. Before you woke, where was it? You didn't see it, you didn't feel it. It simply wasn't there, so far as your experience was concerned. And yet, the moment awareness returned, the whole structure reassembled. As if nothing had happened. This is the paradox of the vanishing world. The assumption you see is that the world is always there, out there, permanent, detective, just ticking along while you sleep, while you dream, while you disappear into unconsciousness. But if your entire experience of reality happens through awareness, then where is the world when awareness is not attending to it? Now, of course, science tells us that the universe exists whether we're looking or not, but that's an idea, a belief. Your experience tells a different story. The room behind you, are you absolutely certain it's still there right now? You assume so. But what you're assuming is continuity, permanence. And these are conveniences, habits of mind, not proof. Perception doesn't give you reality. It gives you a rendering, a construction. The brain edits, fills in blanks, makes educated guesses, and you experience that guesswork as solidity. When you close your eyes, the world doesn't go dark, it disappears, not because it has ceased to exist, but because it was never separate from your observation to begin with. Quantum physicists stumbled into this mystery long ago. The infamous double-slit experiment showed that particles behave differently when measured. Observation doesn't just record reality, it shapes it. So the question isn't whether the world exists when you're not looking, but whether it ever existed independent of your looking. When you touch the table, what you're feeling is resistance between atomic fields, not solidity. When you hear a voice, it's not the sound itself you're hearing, but your brain's interpretation of a vibrating membrane. The world, it seems, appears in tandem with consciousness, like a dance partner who only steps into view when the music starts playing. And when the music stops, where does she go? So here you are, lying in a room. You think the room is real, you think time is passing, but these are all assumptions woven into the tapestry of perception. Look closely, and you'll notice the threads fray. The present moment is stitched together from sense data, memory, habit, and it's held in place by belief, the belief that this moment is part of a stable, ongoing world. But belief is not evidence, and experience stripped of assumption is not solid. It's spacious, floating dreamlike. The paradox then is not that the world isn't real, but that it isn't independent of the one who sees it. You are not a tiny thing trapped inside a vast external reality. You are the field in which that reality appears. And
when you forget to look, the world returns to potential, like a stage before the curtain rises, like a breath not yet drawn. So tonight, as you close your eyes and the room begins to vanish, not just from sight, but from being, consider this. Perhaps the world isn't something you're in. Perhaps it's something that arises with you. And when you dissolve, it does too. Not tragically, not fearfully, but with the gentle grace of a wave returning to the ocean from which it came.
You wake in the night, and for a few flickering seconds, nothing is familiar. The room, the name, the story, they haven't quite returned yet. And in that brief pause before the curtain rises again, you're not a someone. Not yet. There's just a clear, open presence. Then it arrives. Ah, yes, I'm me again. The name returns. The problems, the plans, the personality tightens back around the silence, like a suit you forgot you were wearing. And just like that, the dreamer re-enters the dream. But what was that moment before the remembering? That empty interval where there was no history, no identity, only awareness. This is what I like to call the dreamer's cage. Not because you're asleep, but because you've forgotten you were ever dreaming at all. Dreams you see are not strange while you're in them. Quite the opposite, they feel remarkably real. You run, you fall, you laugh, you cry, you fly through walls, you speak to the dead. You meet people who were never born, and you never stop to say, wait, none of this makes sense. Only later do you say, oh, that was just a dream. But during the experience, it was reality, because you were there. So the question arises, if presence alone is enough to make a world feel real, then how do you know you're not dreaming right now? You might say, well, this world is stable, it has rules, it's logical. But dreams have rules to their own kind. The logic of dreams is simply more fluid, more poetic, less linear. And even this waking world turns pliable when you're depressed, or ecstatic, or in love. Reality shifts with your mood. Time stretches, space contracts. So what makes this world different is it's simply that we've agreed to call it real. Modern science, interestingly, doesn't offer much comfort. Neuroscience tells us that your experience of the world is a rendering, a best guess interpretation created by your brain. Eyes don't see reality. They collect raw input in the brain, like a skilled magician. Fills in the gaps, adds color, invents continuity. Which means, in a way, that what you experience is already a dream. A waking dream with reliable textures and persistent laws, yes, but a dream nonetheless. And here's where the cage clicks shut. You see, you're not just experiencing the dream, you're also forgetting that you're dreaming. Every time you identify with the story, this is who I am, this is how the world is, you fall further into the spell. It's not that you're trapped, it's that you keep forgetting the door was never locked. The paradox is this: you long to awaken, but you already believe you're awake, and that is the dream. But if you could remember, just faintly, that what you are is not the character in the story, but the space in which the story unfolds, then the entire thing begins to shimmer, not to dissolve, not to vanish, but to become sacred. Because even a dream, when it's seen through clearly, becomes a miracle. So you lie there again, the body remembered the name reattached, but now maybe there's a pause, a glimmer of doubt, a soft smile, and a silent knowing. Ah, yes, I'm back in the dream again. But this time, I know. Most of us move through life with the subtle assumption that we are here, watching, that there's a self perched somewhere behind the eyes, observing the world like a spectator behind glass. And this seems so obviously true. After all, isn't that what it feels like? I see. I notice. I'm aware. But what if the act of observation is the very thing that cuts you off? Into a room, and instead of being in the room, you're already describing it. Messy, cozy, too quiet, too bright. You meet someone and the judgments begin before they've even spoken. You feel something stir inside, grief, desire, and before it's fully felt, you've labeled it. The moment becomes a concept, the experience becomes commentary. And you, the so-called observer, remain one step behind life, always narrating, rarely touching. This is what I call the observer's prison. You've mistaken the commentary for the observe yourself, your emotions, your habits, your progress, the more you begin to feel like you're monitoring a performance, even in solitude. There's a little internal audience taking notes. Am I doing this right? Was that a spiritual moment? Did I react well? You've become both actor and critic, trapped in the glow of your own mental spotlight. And while you might think self-awareness is freedom, it can also become surveillance, constant, quietly suffocating. You go for a walk to clear your mind, and another part of you whispers, "Is it working?" You sit to meditate and a voice says, "Am I present yet?" You even try to escape the inner narrator and find that the attempt is being narrated too. So how do you get out? Well, the paradox is you don't. You see, the observer isn't a villain. It's not even a thing. It's a function, a habit of consciousness that helps us survive, but it becomes a prison when you mistake it for who you are. You are not the voice saying, "I'm watching." You are not the commentary. You are not the evaluation. You are the space in which all of that arises. You are not the spotlight. You are the stage. And this, you see, is where something truly freeing begins. You don't need to stop the thoughts. You don't need to tear down the walls of the observer's prison. You simply see that the walls were made of light, of habit, of language, nothing solid. Let the observer do what it does. Watch, judge, narrate, but don't bow to it. Don't confuse it with the truth. Watch the thoughts without grabbing them. Let the emotions move without needing a name. Let experience unfold without commentary. And then something soft happens.
The performance fades, the spotlight dims, and you feel the texture of life not as something you're watching, but as something you are. And in that moment, there is no separation, no observer. No observed. Just this. Immediate. Alive. Free. You move through the world with a quiet certainty. I am someone. You say I without blinking. You speak of my thoughts, my choices, my life, as though there's a fixed central figure pulling the strings. A little homunculus in the driver's seat. A self, a soul. But pause for a moment and really look. Where is it? The body, it's changing constantly. You were once a small child, and none of those cells remain. Yet you still say, that was me.
thoughts, they come and go like guests at a train station. You don't choose them. They just arrive and often leave before you've made sense of them. The memory's beautiful, painful, stitched together like a bedtime story. But they're fluid, fragmented, edited each time you recall them. So what's left? What is this self that feels so central yet disappears the moment you go searching for it? Try it. Turn your attention inward, not to your thoughts, but to the one who supposedly have them. And what do you find? Just more thoughts, more sensations, more shadows on the wall. The self, it seems, is like the horizon. You can see it clearly from a distance, but the closer you get, the more it dissolves into the landscape. And still you say, but I must be someone, I'm here, I'm conscious. Of course you're conscious. That's not in question. But perhaps you're not someone being conscious. Perhaps you are simply consciousness. You see, the illusion of the self is useful. It allows us to play roles, sign contracts, tell stories. It gives continuity to experience, but it isn't real in the way we assume. Neuroscience has looked for it, the self, and found no central node, no command post, just a network, a symphony with no conductor. You might say that's bleak, but on the contrary, it's rather freeing. If there's no self to protect, then there's nothing to defend. If there's no identity to prove, there's no performance to maintain. And if there's no one inside pulling the levers, then perhaps life isn't something you're steering, but something you're being. A wave doesn't control the ocean, it is the ocean moving in a particular way. So too perhaps are you. The paradox of the vanishing self is this: the thing you've built your whole life around, the eye behind the eyes, is never actually found, but something else is. Something quiet. Not a person, not a name, but awareness itself. Not a self watching the story of the scene in which the story appears. So tonight, if the story of you starts to tug and clamor for your attention, what you've done, what you should do, what you must become, just notice. Watch it rise, watch it perform, and then without resistance, let it pass. Because behind it, there is something that has never changed. Something you didn't invent. Something you cannot lose. is not seen.
You think you remember your life. You remember the pivotal moments, the heartbreaks, the triumphs, the things you swore you'd never forget. You say that made me who I am, as though the past is a fixed sculpture, and you are the statue it left behind. But the past isn't a sculpture. It's a story. And the mind is not a museum. It's a novelist with a fondness for revision. This is the paradox of the rewritten past. You see, memory is not a recording. It's a reconstruction. Each time you remember something, your mind assembles it from bits and pieces. Emotion here, an image there, a borrowed phrase stitched in, without your knowing. And then it saves the revised version, as if that's how it always happened. So the past is never truly remembered. It is reimagined over and over by the one doing the imagining. But here's where it gets slippery. Your entire identity is built on memory. You say I'm like this because of what happened to me. But what if what happened is not what you remember? What if what you remember is what makes sense now? The self, then, is not a product of what occurred, but of what you believe occurred. The past becomes a mirror, not a photograph. And that mirror reflects whoever is holding it in this moment. So if you feel broken, the past appears as a series of wounds. If you feel proud, the same events become stepping stones. If you feel lost, Memory rewrites itself as a series of wrong turns. The events may be the same, but the story is new every time you tell it.
Even trauma obeys this logic, not in its pain, but in its meaning. What once destroyed you may later feel like a turning point. Not because the facts changed, but because the relationship to them did. Healing is not the erasure of memory, it's the rewriting of meaning. But the reverse is also true. You can stay trapped in a version of the past that no longer fits, simply because you keep repeating it like gospel. You say that's just who I am, and the memory nods politely, because that's what it's been told to do. So then if the past keeps shifting, what becomes of the self that rests on top of it? Perhaps it's not resting on anything. Perhaps the self is more like a story being told in real time, half improvisation, half recollection, never quite finished, never entirely true.
And so we arrive again at awareness. Because if memory is fluid and identity is woven from memory, then what remains? Not the events, not the roles, but the awareness in which the whole story unfolds. The one who watches the past being rewritten like waves, drawing new lines in the sand.
You are not the memory. You are the presence that sees it change. So tonight if the old stories come knocking, reminding you of what you did, what you lost, who you used to be, greet them with a gentle smile.